Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to our Week 10 fantasy coverage. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with co-host Jay Dash. Gonna mix it up a little bit for you this week. We're gonna do our waiver claims segment as a separate episode all on its own. There's been so many waiver claims, Dash can't even sleep. Dude's just texting me waiver claims all day long. I don't even know what's going on. I think my phone's dead already.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a deep sleeper.
After the waiver claims, go ahead and check out our sleepers, deep sleepers, and situational starters. But let's get this started off, Dash.
All right, let's start with quarterbacks. And the first guy here, Blake Bortles. It's amazing to me this guy's still available in about 50% of the leagues. He has 11 touchdowns over his last 4 games. He has 300 or more passing yards in 3 of his last 4 games. They have a nice passing game out there with Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns as their 1 and 2. Brian Walters has stepped up here and there. They're supposed to get Marquise Lee back now. So there's a lot of weapons out there, not to forget Julius Thomas at tight end, who they recently got back a couple weeks ago. And I guess it's because they're a losing team. People don't want them. Just like Brian Hoyer, another guy I'm going to mention here in a minute. It seems like people don't want them just because they're losing, but they play from behind a lot. And look, he has 33 or more attempts in all but 1 game this season, so they're passing a ton. I like guys that don't win games because that means they're passing a ton. And Blake Bortles, if I had him on my team, I would consider my quarterback position set.
I picked Blake Bortles up. Thought I was feeling good about it. Seen a nice little trade come from Easy to try to put Ben Roethlisberger on the team. Big Ben's coming back from injury. I said, all right, let's do it. I bring Ben in, and then he goes down.
Yeah, he might not miss much time, though. So we'll see what happens. You may still have won that deal. We'll have to see moving forward. But how about Tony Romo? This guy's going to be coming back here pretty soon. So if he's out there on waivers for you, why not go pick him up even if you need a second quarterback?
Yeah, please believe if you're one of those people who are struggling at the quarterback position a little bit, or even in a 10-team league or a league that plays 2 quarterbacks, I don't know why you would, but some do it. Tony Romo's going to come back. Jerry Jones said even if they're not in playoff contention that they want to get Romo some work. So if you got a free spot on your bench, you go stash him. That's a guy who could win you a playoff game. Romo's been putting up good fantasy points the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, Des Bryant is back healthy now. He played well with Matt Castle. Cole Beasley had a huge game. Jason Witten still playing well at this point in the season. When Tony Romo comes back, all these players get an increase in value as well. And I like Dallas's offense when Romo comes back.
He could be back against the Dolphins on the 22nd, I believe. Not this week.
Yeah.
But next week after that.
How about Brian Hoyer? This is a guy I mentioned over the past several weeks. He goes up against Cincinnati this week, and that's a tough defense to play against for quarterbacks this season, but I still play him. He's been playing well over the past 5 or 6 weeks. They're coming off a bye. If I'm in a deep league and he's out there, look, he's available in about 90% of the league still, and he's putting up top 10 fantasy points over the past 5 weeks, so I go grab Brian Hoyer still. I know he's not a big-name player, and people don't think of Brian Hoyer as a great quarterback, but this is fantasy football, and he's putting up the points.
He's got a top 10 quarterback QBR, ESPN's quarterback rating, however they decide it. That's ahead of Big Ben, Derek Carr, Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, and Russell Wilson. So he's putting up points. He's putting up fantasy points. Is he now the best quarterback in that division with Andrew Luck going down?
Well, Matt Hasselbeck hasn't played too bad this season, but don't forget about Blake Bortles, the guy we just talked about. I think that's the best quarterback there, and he's been a top 10 quarterback pretty much all season long, but Brian Hoyer's been playing like a top 10 quarterback over the past 5 weeks, like I was saying. So I'd say Bortles and then Hoyer.
What a good crop of young quarterbacks. I know Bortles and Mariota haven't risen to like real elite level. I'm not even talking about fantasy, but when Bortles hits there, if Mariota hits there, and Andrew Luck will really be in his prime once they start like climbing there, that could be an interesting division to watch.
Well, speaking of Mariota, this is another guy you can go out and add. He's still available in about 65% of the leagues. Now, I'd rather have Bortles, I'd rather have Hoyer, and I'd rather have Tony Romo. So if they're out there, I'm looking at them first. But Mariota, 371 yards last week, 4 touchdowns. It was against New Orleans, though, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But it was the second time this season that he had 4 touchdowns. And he does go against Carolina this coming week, so I probably wouldn't play him. But then he has Jacksonville twice in Oakland over the next 3 weeks. So those are 3 good matchups for him if you're looking for a quarterback around that time. But like I said, I'd look at these other quarterbacks first.
You're right about this week going up against Carolina, but I think with Mike Mularkey now in charge instead of Ken Wisenhunt didn't quite use Mariota the right way, I don't think. I don't know. I don't want to say he used him wrong. He just didn't work to Mariota's strengths. And I think Mularkey is going to work to Mariota's strengths more. He just wants to win games. He's trying to keep a hold and maybe become the head coach next year. So he's going to do whatever it takes to win a football game. He's not necessarily going to try to say, this is my offense, you guys have to learn it. You know, you don't have a whole offseason to install it and things like that. So Mularkey's going to pull out some trick plays. We know he loves those trick plays. He did a very good job when he was the coordinator here in Pittsburgh with Cordell Stewart. Stewart isn't half the talent that Marcus Mariota is. So although Tennessee will most likely keep losing games, I think Mariota's going to start putting up good numbers. 2-4 TD games for a rookie. That's pretty good.
Well, they've been running the ball more as of late, too. And speaking of that, Antonio Andrews, he's available in about 50% of the league still. He has 35 carries over the past 2 games. They were double-digit fantasy performances, although they weren't big points. But he's been running the ball a lot recently out there in Tennessee, so he might be a guy you want to go and add in a deeper league. I know Tennessee running backs people don't get too excited about in terms of fantasy, but I mean that he's getting a ton of carries out there. The one thing is though, David Cobb is going to return soon too from IR, and a lot of people believe he could take over as the feature back. So it's still sort of a crappy situation out there, but one of these 2 guys should turn into the feature back. If it's not Andrews, who it is right now, it's going to be David Cobb. I still sort of like Cobb just because Andrews hasn't really blown up or anything, and Cobb could come in and be a better running back, and I always like the potential that I haven't seen yet over a guy you know can be okay.
So you don't want Jacoby Jones over Dree Archer?
You're dead wrong. Another running back, James Starks, he's available in about 60% of the leagues. A lot of people were hoping for Lacy to break out after the bye. That really didn't happen. And Starks has been the more consistent running back over the course of the season, better than Lacy has been. And last game, just 39 rushing yards, but he had 6 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown in the passing game against Carolina. James Starks has looked like the better back over Lacy this season, and they're starting to split time. I still think they're going to give Lacy every single chance they can to get back into the form he was in last season, and I see him sticking around for the remainder of the season. But if you have him, again, like I said a few weeks ago, I'm going to pick up James Starks as well. And even if you don't have Lacy, I mean, James Starks is a guy you're going to have to go and add at this point.
Eddie is garbage. I never was big on Lacy.
Having a bad season. He was injured at the beginning of the season as well. I think he's going to come back and be okay.
He's had problems with his foot a couple times in his career. That's
well, when
alarming.
He was drafted too. Yeah. Carlos Williams.
I'm trying to pick his dude up.
Yeah, Buffalo running back.
You that.
He's available in about 65% of the leagues. LaShawn McCoy, he may not be able to go this week. He has a shoulder injury. He may still play, but even if he does, Carlos Williams is still a guy I'm going to go ahead and add because he's been playing well with McCoy in the game as well. Now, when McCoy went down last week, Williams stepped in and ran for 110 yards on just 9 carries, 2 touchdowns versus Miami. It was his second 100-yard rushing game this season. And look, he has 5 touchdowns in 5 games played this year. Let's not forget he was injured for a little bit as well. But all 5 games, double-digit fantasy performances as well. So like I said, even if McCoy comes back, Williams is a guy that needs to be added because he's probably one of the best change of pace backs to own in football, in fantasy football right now.
5 TDs in 5 games. Dude just scores every time he plays.
Please believe. Another change of pace back that you may want to go and add is Ryan Matthews from Philadelphia. He's available in about 40% of the league still, which is pretty surprising to me. But last week, 67 yards and a touchdown at Dallas. He has 3 TDs over his last 4 weeks. DeMarco Murray, he's still doing well in fantasy. In fact, he's been one of the top 10 fantasy backs so far this season. But Matthews has been good recently as well. He's not getting as many touches as Murray, but he's still getting it done. Murray last game was actually used a lot more in the passing game, but Matthews has been breaking off big chunks of yardage all season long. And I think if they keep splitting time between them, they can both be valuable.
I read an article, and I have no idea how much truth there is to this, that Chip Kelly could be leaving Philly for Tennessee next year because he wants to coach Mariota, and that the Eagles front office didn't want to sign DeMarco, so that you could see him shipped out of town via trade or just all-out release after the season if Chip Kelly leaves, because he was the guy that wanted Murray, not anybody else.
Ridiculous.
I know.
Trade Murray and Chip Kelly to Tennessee.
There you go. Get the first overall pick because they're going to end up with it.
Another guy, Marcel Reese. Now we know Latavius Murray got hurt in this past game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was a concussion. They're not sure if he's going to go this week. If he doesn't go, Marcel Reese could be a good play. Now it's still a tough matchup for him. I mean, Minnesota lets up the 7th fewest fantasy points to running backs this season, and Marcel Reese isn't a guy that I'm going to add for a long-term piece. I'm not thinking of him for the next 6 weeks or anything. But in a time of need, if you really need a running back this week and Latavius Murray sits, Marcel Reese might not be that bad of a play because he can get it done in the passing game too.
Oakland.
And then there's New England. There's James White and Brandon Bolden you could go add because of Dion Lewis going down for the season with a torn ACL. Now, James White, he's available in about 95% of the leagues. Brandon Bolden's out there in about 98% of the leagues.
Any chance Dree Archer gets signed by the Patriots and blows up?
I mean, I thought
You're dead wrong.
I thought it would be possible at one point, not to blow up. I mean, get signed by the Patriots. That's a different story. But the fact that he turned down all those practice squad opportunities, I'm not quite so sure anyone's going to go out there and sign him.
Dude's beat.
But you look, Dion Lewis, he got 12 touches per game, and Dion Lewis was a beast. Now, if James White and Brandon Bolden step in for him, I don't think they're going to get 12 touches a game because they're not going to want to get them the ball as much as they got Dion Lewis the ball because, like I said, between LeGarrette Blount and Dion Lewis, they had things going pretty well. But I think it's going to be more LeGarrette Blount at this point, and Dion Lewis was the guy in the passing game, and James White and Brandon Bolden aren't really those big playmakers like Dion Lewis was. So while you can go out and add them in deeper leagues, and that's something you're going to want to do, I wouldn't expect big things from these guys.
I think Blunt's going to just start running it more in a traditional style. They'll just change their offense a little bit, and they'll just get the ball to LaFell's healthy now, Edelman's healthy, Gronk's playing well. I think they'll just start moving the ball around to their wide receivers. Danny Amendola might actually start getting a couple more targets. You know, I know his targets have been going down, especially with LaFell back, but if they start throwing it a little bit more, maybe he gets another extra 1 or 2 since Dion Lewis isn't going to be there.
One other running back here, Jordan Todman from Pittsburgh. Now, we just
Breaking news.
Yeah, D'Angelo Williams has something wrong with his foot. There's some swelling going on there.
Got a swelled foot. I got to sit here with a swelled foot all day.
I'd think D'Angelo Williams would play, but if he doesn't play, Jordan Todman isn't the worst play in the world because Cleveland cannot stop running backs at all this season. They let up the most yards still. I know they did for most of the season. I think
they're 30th against the run in the last 5 games. I heard somebody say that today.
Yeah, they're terrible against the run. So if it happens where Jordan Todman turns into the starting running back, I mean, even if Isaiah Peed came up and split time with him or something, you're going to want to start Jordan Todman because, like I said, Cleveland's just terrible against the run. And the Steelers have been running the ball well all season, no matter really who's been in at running back.
Feature that run with Landry Jones.
Yeah, Landry Jones and Jordan Todman in the backfield.
Yeah. Woo! Good
right.
thing it's Cleveland this week.
Let's move on to some receivers here. Willie Snead is available in about 30% of the league still. He had 6 catches for 95 yards on 10 targets last week versus Tennessee. So he's still one of the main targets out there for Drew Brees, who is blowing up right now. So I'm surprised Willie Snead really isn't added in all leagues at this point. He has double-digit fantasy performances in PPR in 4 of the last 6 weeks, so a little inconsistent. But like I said, some of that had to do with Drew Brees too, and he's on fire right now. And I want Brandon Cooks, I want Willie Snead, and I want Ben Watson on my team.
I want a lot of things. That doesn't mean I'm just going to get them.
I'm just saying, out of New Orleans, that's who I want on my team. Those are the 3 guys I want. I thought Spiller was going to get more involved, but he only had 1 fantasy point last week.
Yeah,
and
he was bitching in the media right now. I don't know why I'm not getting enough targets. Because you suck. You're garbage, Spiller.
I don't know about that. I mean, he started off the season with an injury. It's coming over to a new team. I think it's taken him a while to get acclimated to the New Orleans Saints offense.
Catch it and run it.
Yeah, it sounds that easy. All right, how about Dorial Green-Beckham? You were talking about Mariota, in Tennessee out there. Dorial Green-Beckham actually had 10 targets last week, 5
Mike
catches,
Malarkey,
77
baby.
yards at New Orleans. He's still available in about 85% of the leagues. He only had 3 targets or less in every other game besides one where he had 6. But Kendall Wright is hurt right now, and he's not expected to return this week. Dorial Green-Beckham finally getting involved. Now, I'm not hurrying up to go out and add him, but if you're in a 12 to 14 team league, Dorial Green-Beckham might be a guy you want to just go stash on your bench because maybe he is going to start to turn into one of Mariota's favorite targets.
Add that mofo.
Or you could go with Devin Funchess from Carolina.
Yeah.
He finally stepped up this past week as well.
Though.
Yeah. Look, he's available in about 85% of the leagues as well. 3 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown last week versus Green Bay. It was his first good game as a professional. Cam Newton looks great out there right now. What?
That was just funny the way you said it.
Well, it is. He's a rookie.
You're right.
Just like Dorial Green-Beckham. I'd probably go with Beckham first, but I'm looking at Funchess in 12 to 14 team leagues too, just like Beckham, and stashing him on my bench because maybe, just maybe, he is going to start to turn into one of Cam Newton's favorite targets out there because really they have nothing at receiver.
What about Nate Washington down there in Houston?
Please believe, available in about 75% of the league still. He's been targeted a ton this season. 50 targets in 5 games.
Dude just drops everything.
4 double-digit fantasy performances this season. 3 touchdowns over his last 2 games. Now, the one question is, if Cecil Shorts returns,
Eat my shorts full.
does Nate Washington take a back role then? Because Shorts may step into the number 2 receiver out there ahead of him. And if he does, I don't know if there's enough targets for Nate Washington out there as well. But Brian Hoyer's been playing great. And
no running game now, so they should be chucking the ball a little bit more.
Oh, they've been chucking the ball all season anyways. Arian Foster really wasn't doing much on the ground. I do like Nate Washington. If Cecil Shorts is out there, I think I go add him first. But I wouldn't mind either one of these guys right now.
Houston's offense scares me.
Another guy, Michael Floyd from Arizona, still available in about 45% of the leagues. I just heard that he may step ahead of John Brown as the number 2 receiver. So it's going to be
Brown. Sorry, Eddie B.
Larry Fitz and Michael Floyd as the 1 and 2. I mean, they still run 3 wide 95% of the time. So John Brown's going to be on the field still. But Michael Floyd's really stepping into that role that I thought he was going to be for the past couple years, actually. I've been high on this guy for years, and he's actually starting to show it. And let's not forget Kamar Aiken. He's still available in about 60% of the leagues.
Not in our league.
He's going to be the number 1 receiver in Baltimore from here on out, it looks like. So don't forget. I mean, they were on a bye last week, so a lot of people forget about guys that were on a bye coming into the next week. He's still out there in a lot of leagues.
Joe Unibrow. He's got to chuck the ball to somebody. Why not Clay Aiken?
Jacob Tamme, only tight end I have here. He's still available in about 75% of the leagues. Last week, 10 targets again, 6 catches, 61 yards at San Francisco. The previous week, he had 10 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown. He had 22 targets combined over those 2 games. He had 10 or more targets 3 times in the past 5 weeks. They are going into a bye this week, so you're not going to be able to use them this week. But look, it's
I hate Atlanta.
Julio Jones out there, and it's really no one else at this point. No one else has
Devontae
stepped
Freeman.
up. Well, yeah, I'm talking about the passing game. Devontae Freeman's a beast, and he's one of the best running backs out there. But targets for Matt Ryan out there behind Jones. I mean, Jacob Tamme is his second favorite target right now.
I hate Atlanta.
Yeah, they suck, man. I don't know what's going on with them.
Every time I pick them, something bad happens. How do you lose to Blaine Gabbert?
Blaine Gabbert, go pick him up, man.
I just needed him to win, man. Didn't matter about how many points. Just win. You freaking lose. Breaks
Please
my
believe.
heart.
So you're going to pick up Carlos Williams.
Please believe.
That's what you're doing. I don't even know what I'm going to do this week. I might go for James Starks, man.
Dude's got a touchdown in every game he played in so far this year. I could use a backup running back. Lev Bell been beat up. A couple other guys beat up. Need it. Especially if McCoy doesn't play. Because he is my starting running back now. That it? Any more waiver claims?
Nope, that's it.
Let's wrap it up. Fans, you got any waiver claims for us? Hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube and clicking subscribe. Check out our fantasy situational starters, sleepers, and deep sleepers next.
Today, Junior.